Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Gimme Wrestling podcast. My name is Ant, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about Jon Moxley, and in particular, who I'd like to see Jon Moxley have feuds with in the future. Last week on AEW Dynamite, we saw Jon Moxley beat Jake Hager in an empty arena match, which feels like a thing we're seeing a lot of these days, but it was an empty arena match, no one at ringside on that one, and it was a good match and a good end to the Inner Circle feud, I think. I think he beat Jericho, he beat Hager. It's time to move on. So I've compiled a list of the top 5 wrestlers I'd like to see Jon Moxley feud with. Now, these aren't necessarily in order of feud, they're just in order of who I think would make the most exciting feud. Let us know what you think down below. Who do you want to see Jon Moxley feud against? Let us know down below. If you enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe for more wrestling content. Right. Numero 5 is Jimmy Havoc. So Jimmy Havoc's been in AEW since the inception of AEW. Jon Moxley came in at Double or Nothing against Kenny Omega, and straight away I was like, let's get these two guys in a ring together. That would be awesome. Jimmy Havoc has his own unique style. Moxley's been trying to throw in a lot more wrestling acumen into his matches at the minute, as opposed to just the hardcore style. It'd be great, I think, as a way of bringing back Moxley's hardcore style a little bit more, and I'd really enjoy to see that. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Havoc. I think his style is great, from the biting of the hands to just his nastiness in the ring and that sort of viciousness that he has. I think it'd be a hardcore feud. I think it'd be something that'd be interesting with Moxley sort of brushing it off. Well, you haven't had many matches in AEW, or certainly not on the main show. You don't deserve a chance at the title. And this could be Havoc playing with him to try and get into that, whereas Moxley just shrugging it off as you're just an old goth who means nothing. I think that'd be a really interesting dynamic to go down, and could really sort of spotlight Havoc a little bit, which I don't think AEW has done enough just yet. I think it'd be one of them matches that have some really fun spots in. I mean, you've got, obviously it's a hardcore match. You've got the barbed wire and the glass of Jon Moxley versus the stapler of Jimmy Havoc. So would have a lot of fun between them, some sort of parking lot brawl or something like that. I think could be awesome. We'd see heads going through car windows. Perhaps Jon Moxley's new car would get Jimmy Havoc's head through it. I think that'd be great. I think it'd be really great for Jimmy Havoc. Let us know what you think about that. It's quite interesting, because I'm a big fan of Jimmy Havoc, but I don't know if he's been showcased enough on AEW at the minute. As soon as he come into AEW, I was like, this is a great feud, but I'm not necessarily suggesting this would be a match that would be on pay-per-view. This could be a match that was on a feud that happened on Dynamite, building up to a pay-per-view, building up to something else, and sort of give Jon Moxley a feud for that time. I think it'd be great. At number 4, we have Brodie Lee, the Exalted One. Now, these two have history together. This version of Moxley is doing great work, going after an entire faction, which the Exalted One, Brodie Lee, has with the Dark Order. So it sort of makes sense that Brodie Lee would go into this trying to use the Dark Order to win, and having Moxley fighting off both joining the Dark Order, because obviously there's a similar thing to what they did with Inner Circle, really. I think we know that AEW aren't afraid of throwing some punches towards WWE, and with Brodie Lee's new Vince McMahon gimmick, that'd be perfect time for that. You know, what better way for Moxley to feud against the authority that he was stifled by in WWE than feuding with AEW's Vince McMahon? I think that's a really interesting story, and I think that it could really lead to some interesting punches towards WWE, but it could be fun. It'd be a fun match. Harper is a great wrestler, a really hard-hitting wrestler, and I think this would be unlike anything that we've seen in WWE. I think Extreme Rules 2015 had these two going off against each other with no clear winner. I think after they went away, backstage brawl or something like that. But I think it'd be interesting. Obviously, Brodie Lee has experience in CZW as well. So it'd be interesting to see the hardcore style of Brodie Lee a little bit more highlighted, as well as having the entire Dark Order attacking Moxley and Moxley fighting that off. One stipulation to this would be is that I wouldn't want to see it anytime soon. I think we would just come in from the feud with the Inner Circle with a really, really great faction. I think if they went on straight to this now, it would be a little too soon. So I think feud with one of the other guys that I mentioned on this list first, and then let's see Brodie Lee versus Moxley. I think that'd be really interesting stuff. Next up at number 3, I have Lance Archer, or the Murder Hawk. Now, he's obviously been signed to AEW recently. We've seen a lot of squash matches with him. He's going after Cody in the TNT Championship. He's a great wrestler. And these two have history again. Wrestle Kingdom 14, the Texas Death match they had between them, I thought was a really good, hard-hitting match. Again, they've got the hard-hitting style of Lance Archer, the monster that he's been built up into, going against the champion, Jon Moxley. Another really interesting dynamic to this feud is the addition of Jake the Snake Roberts, who could really be trying to get into the head of Moxley. And I think that it should be played in a way that Moxley is actually letting Jake the Snake get into his head, and that's causing him difficulties and causing him to be unable to beat Lance Archer until it comes to the important match where it's for the championship. Or maybe Lance Archer takes it. I think that would be acceptable. I think Lance Archer is great, and I think the stuff he's been doing on Dynamite has been great recently. At number 2, a weird one, because most of these guys are heels, a face. Adam Page. So Adam Page has all the momentum in the world. He's really got himself over with the drinking gimmick. He was a bit, since that first sort of championship match, it was all about Jericho and Adam Page in that very first championship match. And I don't think the crowd were really behind Page, because everyone was excited to see what Jericho would do in AEW. The fans are now behind Page. He's a great wrestler. He feels like a contender for the title. But why would you have two faces go against each other at this point? Well, you've got Adam Page, who is anti-establishment, doesn't like being mollycoddled kind of guy, who's drinking, who's going off doing his own thing. And you've got Moxley, who's an anti-establishment kind of guy. And that's been established in AEW as well, with him sort of telling Tony Khan that it's a disgrace that his match against Kenny Omega didn't count towards the win-loss standings. I think that this would be a really great feud. And Adam Page, although it would be face versus face, Hogan and Warrior worked. And I think that these two could make it work. I think you would have a really clear split in the crowd, a divide in the crowd of people cheering Adam Page and people cheering Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley can be using his hardcore style to try and beat Page, whereas Page is going, well, why do you need to use that to beat me? I think that would be a really interesting dynamic. Cool, so that's the 4. So we've got one more. Obviously, there was other guys that I thought about in the list. Neville sort of makes sense. Pentagon Jr., I think makes a lot of sense. I think him and Moxley would have a great match. It'd be great to see Moxley go against that lucha style, and Pentagon feels like the heavy hitter of the Lucha Bros. So I'd really like to see that match. Like I say, please write down your 5 in the comments below. It's always great to read what you think would be a great feud. So, at number 1, MJF. I imagine most of you guessed that it was MJF. Look, he's the perfect heel. He's nasty, he's vicious, he cuts a mean promo. And that'd be a really great feud that'd be interesting to see. Obviously, he's got Wardlow as his right-hand man, as his muscle in this case. I think that'd be really great to see how that played out. I think that MJF having a match with Dean Ambrose would really sort of elevate MJF into that main card contender that he should always be in. I like the idea of MJF setting up stipulations for Jon Moxley in a very similar way to he did to Cody, to get a match with MJF, but then for him to turn it around later on and say, for Dean Ambrose to turn it around and say, look, I don't have to fight these stipulations. I have the championship. And so I think it'd be great for him to sort of come up with these 3 stipulations. I think you establish that as an MJF thing with his next little feud, and then you get MJF to do exactly the same. Moxley isn't going to adhere to him like Cody did, and Moxley just turns around and says, hey, you want the championship, you're coming to my stipulations, and actually put MJF on the back foot. I think that'd be really interesting stuff, and it's certainly a feud I'd like to see, and who knows, maybe MJF could be the next champion. It'd be great to hear what you think down below. Please let us know, and let us know what other top 5 you want to see happen. Rock and roll. Until next time, keep it GAHY gay.